Hello and welcome to my channel. It's Monica from Crafting with Cooling Lady and I hope you have absolutely amazing day. I have 3 autumn projects for you using beautiful sunflowers. If you like any of those cards and you feel inspired, please feel free to create your own. For my projects today, I used the kit from John Next Door, Autumn Special, issue 63. The kit has the box. It also has a magazine with design papers. But for my projects today, I didn't use any of those papers. I just focused on the stamps in the kit, embossing folder and the cutting dies. And now you can see the beautiful embossing folder with the leaves, and it is just perfect for all the autumn projects you're going to create. It also has the beautiful stamp set. My stamp set was really bent when I received my kit, but I was still able to use it. And then we have cutting dies, the border die and the small frame for the sunflower. So let's start our first project. So we're going to need 3 white strips of card and we're going to emboss them. Please check your manual for your cutting machine just to make sure the plate combination you're going to use is the right one. When we emboss our 3 small panels, we are going to use ink blending technique. And I suggest use any inks that you have at home. They don't have to be the ones I'm using today. Just make sure you like the colors that you're going to use and they go really nicely with the autumn season. I'm going to start with the yellow. When I use ink blending technique, I always start with the lightest color. And I have to say, when we add more colors, the leaves just pop out beautifully and there is beautiful variation of the nature here. So I was using yellow, orange, and now I moved on to the green, and I'm using green only on the leaves. I'm not going to put it between the leaves. And then when we finish, I'm going to add a little bit of brown, just for small variation. And actually, if you look at any leaves around your house, you probably see that you can't really find 2 the same leaves. They do have some variation in the colors. And just to make it even more special, I use the metallic ink from Spectrum Noir and I'm using my finger to apply the color. It is really tricky to see the shine on the video, but I have to say that in real time it looks very, very pretty. And if you have any metallic inks, I suggest you can use them for this project because we don't really use them so often, and this time is the perfect for this project. Now, I'm going to use some gold mirror card strips on my card. First, I'm going to put my embossed panels on the top and on the bottom of my card, just to make sure that all the pieces will be evenly spaced. As you can see, the bigger leaves go at the top of the card and the small ones at the bottom. As usual, I'm using liquid glue because it gives me some time to maneuver all the pieces. If they're not straight, I still can maneuver them. And when you turn your card the other way, you can get rid of the excess using your scissors. And then everything is nice and neat on your card. And now it's time to put the middle part on our card. And again, I'm going to use gold mirror card strips to put it at the top and at the bottom of my embossed panel. And I think this little thing adds so much to the card and gives it more interest. You don't really need to have lots of gold mirror card, even the strips are enough to make your card more special. And as usual, I'm using double-sided tape before I stick it to the card base. But first, before I stick it to the card base, I'm going to put our beautiful sunflowers. I used the stamps from the kit, the big one and the small sunflower, and waterproof ink from Spectrum Noir. I used 3 zig markers to color in my sunflowers, and I stamped every single piece on a watercolor card, which made it so easy to color in with zig markers, as they are watercolor markers. Now I'm going to put the sunflowers on my card, and I'm trying to put them in a way that it looks really nice. I also stamped, colored in, and fussy cut the leaves, and for the coloring I also use zig markers. And I actually used the watercolor card that in the past I used for coloring in. So you can always use any scraps you have at home. You don't need to buy a new set of the paper or just buy a new pad. You can use the old one that you have at home. And now it's time to add the sentiment. I'm going to put it on acrylic block, and I'm going to use metallic ink from Spectrum Noir. On the card it looks a little bit light, but it's fine. It just gives a little bit something special to the card. And now, as usual, I'm going to put it on a card base. As you can see, I peeled the double-sided tape and I use liquid glue just to make sure that everything is strong and nice. And you know me, so now it's time for some gold gems to put on the card. I usually go with odd number here, just to make it more pleasing to the eye. And that's our first card done. I hope you will give it a go and do it yourself. Now let's go and do our project number 2. For this one we're going to do square base card. I need 2 square dies because they will go nicely with our frame die from the kit. And we're going to use it on a gold mirror card. Check your cutting machine manual for the plate combination. Before we move on to our square panel, we're going to emboss the panel that will actually go behind the shaker element. Now we've got the embossed panel, which you can't really see on the video, but in real life the embossed leaves are so beautiful. And as usual, I start with the lightest color, and using my ink blending tool, I apply the color to the card. So I started with yellow, now it's time for orange, and then I will move on to the green one. You don't have to use the ink I'm using here, you can use any brand, even you can use Oxides or Spectrum Noir, whatever you have at home. That doesn't really matter. Just use the colors that you like, and that they will go nicely with the autumn season. And the last color I'm going to add is brown, and that will go behind our shaker element. Now I'm going to put double-sided tape on the back just to make sure it's ready before we do our next step. Now I'm just checking where it should go on the card, maybe at the top, at the bottom. I think the top will work better. So that's the frame I created with the gold mirror card, and I also put the acetate and double-sided tape at the back. As I said before, we're going to create our shaker element here. For the frame here, I use liquid glue, and when I applied it on the shaker element, I had to leave it to dry for about 10 minutes. And I put acrylic block on top just to make sure it dries flat. Yeah, and that's how I left it, and I put the acrylic block. And it worked perfectly. Now it's time for a sentiment. When we know where our shaker element will go, we can stuff the sentiment at the bottom of our card. You don't have to use metallic ink here. You can use any ink that you use for the embossed panel, or you can use the black one or brown. And as usual, I put gold gems on the sides. That is before I put my shaker element in the middle. I just wanted to make sure that everything will be spaced evenly. And gold gems work really nicely together with the gold mirror card. They're just perfect. And I hope you use some gems as well on your projects, because they give it that extra shine to your projects, even the tiny ones. I think there is something so special about them. And now it's time to work on our shaker element. So as you can see here, I colored the sunflowers and I die cut them. I quite actually did a lot of them here. Maybe just too many for this project, but they worked really nicely. I stamped the sunflowers on watercolor card, and that helped the zig markers to move the colors. So that's our shaker element done. Now it's time to remove the double-sided tape and stick our shaker element in the middle of our card. If you don't want to use sunflowers inside your shaker element, you can use gems, sequins, glitter, whatever works for you. But just make sure that when you use double-sided foam adhesive between the acetate and your panel, there is no gap, so nothing can leave your shaker element. That's why the sunflowers here work really nicely, because they won't go anywhere. They will just stay inside the shaker element. As you can see, at the beginning it was pretty difficult to move the sunflowers because I put so many in the middle, but later on it was so easy to move them around. And that's our second project done. Let's move on to our third project today, and again I'm going to use our embossing folder and I'm going to emboss the acetate. The plate combination is exactly the same as for every single embossing folder you use with your cutting machine. I just think we don't really use acetate so much, and it's a shame because you can do so many beautiful techniques with them. And now I'm going to emboss the card as well. And this folder, I think it's the most beautiful one in my stash. When I think about autumn season, it's just perfect for this time of the year. And as you can see, I'm going to use some card for the base. And what I did, I just cut the bottom off, because I'm going to place the acetate in the middle. And for this, you can use liquid glue or double-sided tape. I'm going to add some color to our embossed leaves, and as usual I start with the yellow and then move on to the orange. You can use either the ink blending tool, or you can use the ink brushes if you have them. The choice is yours. You can also use your finger if you feel brave enough. And I have to say that this looks so much better in real life. And brown actually on these leaves is really beautiful. And you can actually feel the autumn season then. Okay. Now we can try to see where can we fit our embossed panel. So here I'm going to measure the space between the top and the bottom of my card. I just want to make sure that the embossed acetate is big enough. When I finally know where it should go and how big should it be, we can use the liquid glue or double-sided tape. I actually use the red tape for this, very thin one. I can't remember, I think it was like 3 millimeters. Oh, you can see it here. And this tape worked absolutely perfectly here. It's really strong adhesive. And with this card, it's really nice because you can hide the message when you write it inside the card, and it can this card can actually stand really proud on someone's shelf. Okay, so you can see me adding the red tape to the acetate, and then I'm going to put the bottom part, as you can see here, and then close my card just to make sure that the card is evenly spaced. And now it's time to get rid of the excess on the other side, and I'm using scissors to do it. The acetate was a little bit wider than my card, but that's okay. And now it's time to add some beautiful embossed leaves at the top and on the bottom of our card. And again, I stamped, colored and die cut or fussy cut the sunflowers for this project on watercolor card. So I'm adding the panels at the bottom and at the top of the card, and again I'm using gold mirror cut strips just to make sure that the card is even more beautiful. And it actually helps the card to be stronger because I don't have heavy weight acetate here, just regular acetate, but even then it works. And I'm going to add the last strip at the top of the card. So if you have any leftovers with your cards, beautiful papers, leave them. You can always use the strips to add some interest to your card. And now I'm going to stick those beautiful sunflowers on the card. And I have to say, it took me quite a long time to color them in and fussy cut, but I think it was worth. These sunflowers are just so pretty. Adding the leaves for extra interest, and I'm adding the last big sunflower, as I really like to work in odd numbers on the card as it is more pleasing to the eye. And now it's time for our sentiment, and again I'm using that metallic ink from Spectrum Noir, and I'm going to fussy cut around the sentiment. And if you saw my previous videos, I always turn it the other way so I can see if the lines are straight or not. And just to add a little bit more interest to my sentiment, I'm going to use black fine liner to add dash lines here. Sometimes these small things add so much to the card. And again, I'm using my scissors just to make sure the lines are nice and straight. Now it's time to add liquid adhesive and, as usual, some gems on the card. And we're nearly done with our 3 projects. There it is, our last card. It's really beautiful, and you can always put it on the shelf, and it is just a little bit different than all the other cards. Okay, and now you can see all 3 cards we created today. I wonder which one is your favorite, and I really wonder if you created a shaker element with flowers inside, or if you used an acetate for your projects. If you did, please leave the comment down below with the link to your project. I would really like to see it. And I have to say that if you don't have this specific kit, I think you can still find it online on Craftsdash. But if you don't, you can use any sunflowers you've got at home, the stamps and cutting dies. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Have a wonderful day and happy crafting! I can't wait to see your projects. Bye!